News Radio WHAM 1180 welcomes you to The Seniors Rock Show. The Seniors Rock Show, a lively weekly discussion shedding a bright light on aging with fun, entertainment, and important info for all adults. Join us with your comments or questions. Call or text 222-1180 or 1-800-295-1180. Now, from the News Radio WHAM 1180 studios in downtown Rochester, here's your host, Joanna Palvino.
Good afternoon and welcome to you. And I am Joanna, your host here for the next hour, and I'm with my co-host, estate planning attorney Mike Robinson. And someone we always look forward to having on the show, Barbara RUBEL. Barbara is a keynote speaker on well-being and resilience. She's an acclaimed author and thanatologist. Mike, would you like to tell the listeners what a thanatologist is?
I sure would, because I didn't have a clue what it was. So thanatologists are specialists in a multidisciplinary field dedicated to better understanding death, dying, grief, loss, and bereavement. They utilize a wide variety of theory and applied practice to support and educate groups and individuals who are navigating end-of-life issues.
Thanks, Mike. Barbara RUBEL's knowledge on the tough subjects of suicide and living blue are from firsthand experience, unfortunately. But she has turned that around, and she's an award-winning author of a book called But I Didn't Say Goodbye, Helping Families After a Suicide, and the new book that she wrote, along with someone else, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, is called Living Blue, Helping Law Enforcement Officers and Their Families from Recruitment to Retirement. We're really grateful that she could join us today. Barbara's latest book, Living Blue, was written with a retired cold case homicide detective. His name is Jason Palomara. It's a unique approach to vicarious trauma-informed practices, and it's based on the personal experiences of the authors, Barbara and Jason, and that of over 70 law enforcement professionals and experts in mental health. Living Blue is designed to increase wellness in officers, their families, and ultimately their communities. Today, Barbara's going to share some ways we can take care of our own well-being. I wish we had the entire day with her, but the next hour we'll have to do. So, Mike, being an estate planning attorney, I'm thinking you probably encounter a lot of people who are not in control of their emotional well-being. Barbara's going to talk about that today and some other things. So, how are you doing? What are you thinking about when we talk about these things, well-being?
Well, you're right. I mean, we do work with a lot of folks who are either dealing with the loss of a loved one or the impending loss of a loved one or some sort of an incapacity situation. And so, I'm really looking forward to hearing what Barbara has to tell us today. And, you know, when we talk about control, there are things we can't control, things we can control. Estate planning, in a lot of ways, is about control. And one of the things I wanted to speak to today, because it is Easter weekend, and, you know, Easter very often is a time where people give pets as gifts.
Oh, yeah.
And so I thought it would be a good idea to talk about ways that pet owners can plan for their pets surviving them. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's very common for pet owners to forget to include provisions for their pets in their estate plans. And yet it is not at all uncommon for pets to outlive their owners. Dogs and cats easily can live 10 years or more. Horses more than 20 years. Birds such as cockatoos and macaws, they can live 50 years or more. And if you happen to have a pet tortoise, he or she typically lives between 50 and 100 years. And, you know, too often when a pet owner dies, the animal either ends up on the street or is euthanized. So it's important to make provisions for the care of your pet. And one of the best ways to do that is with something called a pet trust. And I know for some people, the term pet trust probably conjures up images of Leoma Helmsley, who famously left millions of dollars to her dog. But pet trusts are actually very practical ways to ensure that your pet will be properly cared for after you pass away. So, for example, with a pet trust, it does allow you to set aside funds to be used for the care of your pet. Pets can be expensive, and it's not something that we just want to leave to someone without preparing them. You don't want to put a financial burden on the person who will be caring for your pet. Also, you can be assured that the money you set aside in your pet trust is legally required to be used for your pet's care. So the person you name to be trustee of your pet trust has a fiduciary duty to use the funds you set aside for the purposes you specify, and the trustee can be held accountable if they don't do that. And that's important because, unfortunately, people who are given money with the understanding it's to be used for a pet's care, often do wind up using it for other purposes. And so certainly that also speaks to the importance of whoever you're naming as the trustee of your pet trust. You do need to be able to trust them implicitly. Also, it allows you to name a caregiver for your pet. That may be someone different from the trustee. So you might name someone as a trustee who's going to be overseeing the money and making sure it's being used for the pet's care, but you can name a different person to be the actual caregiver for the pet. And maybe somebody who your pet already knows and is comfortable with, or at least, again, somebody you know is going to be treating that pet well. And of course, like any other component of an estate plan, you should review the provisions of your pet trust with your estate planning attorney at least every few years. People's circumstances change, and the person you named as caretaker or trustee may no longer be able to fulfill that role, or perhaps no longer wants to. And so it is important to review those provisions on a regular basis.
And I know you normally every 3 years you go through things with someone if they have a estate plan with you. I know that. So again, very good stuff to remind us to remember the pets. I mean, think about it. We do so much. I can't even tell you how much we do as far as care, looking up and making sure we're feeding them properly, making sure that they're so taken care of. I mean, they're like our children, basically. We call them our fur babies, right?
Sure.
So when we're not around, and while you're saying this, I'm thinking everybody just thinks we're going to, outlive the pets because they don't, most of them, except for the tortoise, apparently, don't have a long lifespan. So I guess, and again, life comes at us fast. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So be prepared for your animals too. I think this is a very sweet thing to talk about. Even though Easter really, I remember getting bunnies and baby chicks.
That's a big one, yeah.
Not any really big animals then, but and I don't know what happened to those animals. But anyway, my dad took care of that. And I think I want to thank you for remembering the pets, and this is a good time to do it, as you said. So, folks, pet trust, remember that word.
There you go. And we're going to be back just after the break, right, with Barbara RUBEL?
Yes, and I can't wait to have her give us some information, like I said, about well-being. We're talking about well-being with your pets. We're going to talk now about well-being for ourselves. And there's a lot of different categories. So, folks, do not move that dial. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to Seniors Rock Radio. And our guest today is Barbara RUBEL. And Barbara speaks from the heart as the award-winning author of But I Didn't Say Goodbye, Helping Families After a Suicide, and her new book, Living Blue, Helping Law Enforcement Officers and Their Families from Recruitment to Retirement. The pages of these books were ripped out of Barbara RUBEL's life, and she's joining us today to give us some pointers on our own well-being and resilience with the challenges we all face in the world today. So welcome back to Seniors Rock Radio, Barbara RUBEL.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And great to have you back. And, there's today is I Am in Control Day. And I actually have a favorite saying, relax, nothing is under control. But there are things that we can control. And tell us, what are some of the ways we can take control of our emotional well-being?
Well, to be in control of your emotions, you have to start with your thoughts, because thoughts lead to emotions, and emotions lead to behaviors. So be in control of your thoughts by stopping the negative self-talk when it happens. And if you're overwhelmed, ground yourself. Take a deep breath, place your feet on the floor, or just look for moments of awe, such as nature or flowing water. Brian Tracy, he said, you cannot control what happens to you, but you can control your attitude toward what happens to you. And in that, you'll be mastering change rather than allowing it to master you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very good. What a great way to start to talk about emotional well-being. It touches everything. And I know I'm guilty a lot of negative self-talk. And that comes from growing up and hearing some of those things, and they just repeat in your brain. So another thing, Barbara, that I was thinking about is the pandemic disrupted religious, spiritual life and people going to church and so on. How can we now have control of our spiritual well-being?
Oh, thank you for asking that. So many people are really struggling with their spirit. We need to be in control of our core beliefs. Move into your value system, your values and beliefs, and focus on the meaning of your life and the meaning of the loss that you've experienced, especially since COVID. And in the moment, be mindful and focus on what you are grateful for. Practice gratitude. Chris Pine said, the only thing you sometimes have control over is perspective. You don't have control over your situation, but you have a choice about how you view it. So it's a beautiful statement.
Yes, absolutely. Gratitude goes so far in everything, just like we were saying earlier about, as you said, about the core beliefs. Those things, and they can be negative, like I said, about the negative self-talk, but the core beliefs that you have inside of you, bring them to the surface is what you're saying, right? And be grateful. Remember those things. Now, here's a hard one. Are there any tips for controlling our physical well-being? Because I do have a little problem with that here and there.
Yeah, and we all struggle with our physical well-being because of popcorn and ice cream and, not wanting to do what we need to do. But we need to be in control of our health. And that means exercising, even if it's just going for a brief walk, eating healthy, don't eat the dessert, drink lots of water, get enough sleep, simple things. Just focus in on how can I be in control today and focus on my diet, my health, my exercise, what I need to do. And you can ask yourself, what gives me the ability to stay in control of my emotions, my spiritual self, my physical well-being? I love Ben Zobra's quote. He said, at the end of the day, you can't control the results. You can only control your effort level and your focus. So that's the most important thing. And Joanna, you mentioned, like early attachments and those negative thoughts in our head and the way we grew up maybe with trauma or loss. And we have to recognize that we bring that with us today as adults. Mm-hmm. So although this is I am in control day, a lot of our past experiences, traumas and loss impact our inability to be in control.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'm going to say that if you don't face those things, they never go away. I mean, you need to be in touch with those feelings as well as the positive feelings, because once you do, and I've done it in my past myself, I've had loss like you as an early in my life. And what I realized was that once I faced it and felt it, then I could deal with it and it went away. It was great.
Mm. But you need to know that when you're facing it, you're not alone.
Right. Your
spirit guides, your God, the people who, love you are there in spirit. People alive and dead. When you face your demons, as they say, mm-hmm. You're not alone ever.
I love it.
And I think, Barbara, to your point, too, we're not alone, not only in that we do have support, but also, for the most part, we all feel the same things and the same types of thoughts arise for all of us. And so often we, it's, I guess, what Paul Simon would call the myth of fingerprints, right? We think we're all unique and we're the only ones going through something. But everyone out there can relate probably to what we're feeling and what we're going through. And that's where reaching out and having conversations with people, I think, is helpful as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, this phone conversation, this radio program might be saving a life right now. Someone who was thinking of maybe ending their life will now maybe call 988. So we may have not only help someone with a difficult problem, but we might have also helped them with any suicide ideation. So that's very, very important to know that they're not alone, that we're here and we care.
Absolutely. Yes. And sharing that is so important. 988, great number to remind you folks of. And Barbara, I know that you, can you tell the folks your story, briefly about how you got into this stuff?
Yeah, I was in the hospital awaiting the birth of not one or two babies, but triplets, when my father, a retired New York City police officer, used my mother's weapon. She too was a New York City police officer, and ended his life. And he did that not when I was in the hospital, so I could not attend his funeral, his wake. And it set me on this path of being a thanatologist and helping people who are struggling with loss, not only sudden violent loss, like what I experienced, but even non-death related loss, because they impact us every single day.
Absolutely. And boy, we've been seeing it the last few years. Barbara, thank you for being with us. Stay with us, please. And folks, we'll be right back with Barbara RUBEL and the Seniors Rock Show after the news. Welcome back to Seniors Rock Radio. We'll continue now talking about our well-being and resilience with keynote speaker and author Barbara RUBEL. Barbara, I have another question for you. We always do. So we were talking about having control, and some of the things that get out of control are expenses. Can you talk to us about how to get some financial well-being?
Oh, yeah. This is such a huge problem. During my programs, because I do keynotes and trainings, I usually focus on emotional well-being, spiritual, physical, personal, professional. But financial well-being is a huge problem since COVID. People feel as though they do not have enough money to enjoy life. And so they are cutting back on things that they used to enjoy. And that's all well and good. But if you're cutting back on your hobbies and you're cutting back on meeting friends and doing things that you used to have to spend money for, then work-life balance might become a problem. So we need, of course, to be in control of our day-to-day finances. So here are some tips that my audiences have told me. They said, get a cheaper cable service, eat out less, invite your friends to your home instead for some potluck, make coffee at home instead of going out, and set daily spending boundaries. That's the most important thing. So if you always had $20 in your wallet, make it 15. And I love quotes. And Steve Maraboli said, incredible change happens in your life when you decide to take control of what you do have power over instead of craving control over what you don't. So you may want that Gucci bag, you may want that trip to Europe, but you may settle for a bag at Target, which is just as beautiful, and a trip down the street that you haven't visited before. So you set your priorities and you enjoy life without spending as much as you used to. And just again, going back to what we said before, having gratitude for what you do have.
So true. Barbara, most of us know someone who, for lack of a better term, drives us up a wall. What about being in control of personal or professional relationships?
Take control. I am in control day. So this is your day to take control of your personal and professional well-being. You can be in control of your online connections. That means go into your accounts, Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And if you want to stop following people because they don't share the same values or beliefs or political leanings, then maybe it's time to delete those personalities. Relationships. Also, if there's friends that really bother you, keep asking you for money, spend less energy on relationships that are stressful. Learn how to better communicate with unreasonable people. Set your boundaries. I talk about setting boundaries all the time and learning how to just say no, whether it's a neighbor, a coworker, a supervisor who emotionally drains you. So think for a moment, all those people that drain you, but also your stuff. your things can drive you up a wall, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
get control over your mess.
Mm-hmm.
Start with your junk drawer. That's what I started with. And I was so happy. I kept opening it throughout the day. I think I was obsessive compulsive. And then, like, maybe one shelf in your closet, maybe donate old items or put things where they belong. So just look around right now. And where do you want to start? Also, be in control of putting your strengths into practice. My greatest strength is love of learning. So I'm constantly reading the research on resiliency and managing stressors and loss. My other greatest strength is wisdom. So I'm constantly doing keynotes and trainings and radio programs. So what is your greatest strength? And use that strength to be in control. Because someone once said, it's not about being in control. It's about being able to cope with the chaos. So to be in control, put your strengths into action, live your values, experience growth or post-traumatic growth from your struggles, and continually practice, as Joanna said, practice your gratitude. That's the bottom line.
Terrific. And I just took two things away from what you just said. And the first thing was don't eliminate things that bring you joy, adjust, because sometimes you just can't have what you used to have or want what you want. So adjusting is a good thing. And then organizing, huge, clears your head. And I've been doing that too. I had my granddaughter come over, which is one of the only ways you can get to spend time with the kids these days, I think. And
Yes.
we had a good time when we talked about things and went through some pictures, and it was really a wonderful experience. So,
The simple things in life, Joanna.
yes, absolutely. And, you know, I wanted to, I can't let you go without talking about this book, Living Blue, helping law enforcement officers and their families survive and thrive from recruitment to retirement. You did this with Jason Palomara and 70 plus other people that are in law enforcement and mental health. So what a big undertaking, and it is fantastic. Tell people a little bit more about the book.
Thank you. Well, it's now available on Amazon. It's called Living Blue because I lived blue as a family member, and police officers themselves are living the blue line, which means they care about their community. They care about those who are struggling with hardships, especially victims. And so our book focuses on the officer and the officer's family to keep them mentally healthy and physically aware that if they don't take care of themselves, what's going to happen to the community? So many communities are struggling with theft and afraid. People are afraid to go into a store because they may get robbed in the parking lot or physically assaulted or raped. And so it is so important to take care of the police so they stay in their jobs, so we as civilians in our community that we feel safe. So we need to protect those in blue so they protect us.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I hear it firsthand because, as you know, my daughter is married to a police officer. The vicarious trauma, the PTSD that a lot of these folks are dealing with, I don't think people really understand. I mean, the minute they get into their car in the morning, it starts. You know, they don't get a break, and they are short of officers. So thank you for bringing all of this to the attention of the public with this book. And I know cold case homicides are like the rage right now. Don't ask me why. People are fascinated with that. But to have this detectives, side of the story is really cool too. And it looks like we're going to have to go. But thank you so much, Barbara, for being here. Tell us again where we can get the book and more information on you.
Well, but I didn't say goodbye. Helping families after a suicide and Living Blue are both available on Amazon. They could reach out to me at barbararubel.com. That's RUBEL.com, Barbara Rubel, and link in with me. I'd be more than happy to share stories. People can contact me and we can just talk about living life, especially Living Blue.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do for everyone and yourself. And you enjoy your little vacation that you're on right now because you sure do deserve it. Thank you, Barbara Rubel. We'll have you back again.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Seniors Rock Radio. Hey, Mike, today we learned that well-being can come from many areas, right? And I was thinking it can even come from the air we breathe. And I learned a lot about that from the experts at Indoor Air Professionals. And air duct cleaning, that's my thing now, and we had ours done. They're the pros with the most advanced indoor air equipment. And they even do the ships for the U.S. Navy. How about that? That's pretty impressive. Spring, I thought, is the perfect time to get your own air ducts cleaned. So, folks, if you are interested, you should call Peter Gordon. He's actually there today. And yes, he's a real person you can talk to. And you couldn't ask for someone with more knowledge about clean air than Peter. He's the founder of Indoor Air Pros, and he's been there for over 30 years. So if you do want to get cleaner air in your home or business, today's the day to call. Tomorrow's the end of March and the end of 20% off air duct cleaning, and the last day for the $350 off on a medical grade air purifier. So call Peter right now. Breathe easier because you saved your hard-earned cash and you got a great deal on a healthy decision. Indoor Air Pros, Peter, 585-427-8020, extension 303. Again, Peter at Indoor Air Pros, 427-8020, extension 303. Go ahead, give him a call. Tell him you heard it on Seniors Rock. Get a great tip and a great sale on fresh air today. So, Mike, it is spring, and what are you up to this weekend?
Yeah, and it finally looks like spring. The first weekend of spring looked more like winter. So,
True.
So here we go. So actually this weekend, taking advantage of the nicer weather and getting some spring cleaning done. Around the yard mostly, not so much inside, but a lot of outdoor stuff. And I was thinking of Barbara Rubel's talk, and she just has so much great information. But two of the things that stuck out to me, when she was talking about our thoughts and not letting them take us away, down some sort of road. That gets to being aware of our thoughts, and that's hard to do. It's not something that just comes naturally, so that takes some practice. And and I know we've talked on the show before some ways to do that. Simple meditation exercises, just sitting quietly and maybe paying attention to your breath is a good way to practice some awareness. And the other thing, she was talking about choices that we make, and so that requires being intentional. There's so often we just sort of, float along and roll with the tide, so to speak. And there's a place for that. But, when we're choosing the people we associate with, when we're choosing, certain activities, it does require us to really just pause a bit and think about what's important to us and then making choices based on those thoughts. So she just has great stuff to say.
Absolutely. And she is great. And you are great too. And it was a great show. And folks, if you'd like to share the wisdom of Barbara Rubel or Mike Robinson, you can do that too. And we're going to post the show like we do every week. So you can go to Seniors Rock Radio, the website, under past shows, and you can look at that and you can share it with folks. We'll have it on social media as well. So if you're on Facebook, please follow the Seniors Rock page and keep in touch and share it so that we can get this information, which is always wonderful and helpful to people, to as many folks as we can. That's why we're here. We're advocates. We are, shining a bright light on aging, no matter what age you are, and we're here for every adult. So, Mike, thank you for bringing those things up. Terrific way to end it up.
Yeah, and just again to everybody listening, thanks so much. It is Easter weekend, so for those celebrating, happy Easter. We're in the middle of Ramadan, so happy Ramadan as well. And of course, next week, a week from Monday, is the big eclipse, Joanna. Everybody's getting ready for that.
Yeah, I got my glasses.
Good for you. I still have to get mine, actually.
Yeah, and do you know how to know if they're the official glasses?
Well, I know that if you put them on and if you put your hand in front and you can see your hand, they're not okay.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able to see anything at all.
Yeah, and there's a number on them. There's it says ISO or something like that, and then there's a long number that indicates that they're official as well. But that's a good way to check, I guess, too. But yeah, you do not want to look at the sun anytime, especially on the day of the eclipse, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
I haven't decided yet. I'll probably watch it from home. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm going to avoid the big crowds.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to do it in a quiet spot. In fact, we're going to go over by the water, and I hear that's in the totality areas.
Perfect.
The edge of the lake there. So I thought, no lights, that'll be perfect. So that's where we're going to go. And next week, we've got our eclipse show, by the way, on Saturday, and how to enjoy it from a hot tub while eating healthy food. That's how I'd sum up our two guests next Saturday at noon. Mike Crosper of Crosper Brothers Pool and Spa on some health benefits you can get from water. Wait till you hear about that. It's pretty cool. And Shayna Zazzaro, she's the CEO and founder of Effortlessly Healthy Food Delivery. And she's got a very motivational story and a climb to success that you want to hear. So tune in next week, folks. Thank you for joining Mike and I today. Spring is all about new beginnings and transformations. It's a season that symbolizes starting fresh and starting over. And it's a season for all adults to get up and get out, celebrate you, and remember, seniors rock.